Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. 3 major turf races to take a peek at. DRF handicapper Mike Beer and I will analyze the Grade 1 Pattison Canadian International and the Grade 1 EP Taylor Stakes, both on Saturday at beautiful Woodbine, plus the Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup featuring Chad Brown's Rushing Fall. That race at Keeneland. We really have the Canadian International covered. Craig Milkowski of Timeform US will project the pace of the race. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick will focus on the bloodlines of several of the major contenders going a mile and a half in the International. JK's got a multiple race wager for his play of the day, and David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight focuses on the Pebble Stakes at Belmont. Plus best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. This week we've got 2 very fast horses prepping for the Breeders' Cup. Mike, you got a turf sprinter, and it's not the Naira-based Disco Partner.
Yeah, it could have been, though. Disco Partner ran great last weekend at Belmont Park. I think he ran a 105 buyer, too. I went to Stormy Liberal, though, the West Coast version, I guess, of Disco Partner, because he also ran a 105 buyer in his most recent race, the Grade 3 Eddie D. This one's down the hill. We'll look at the replay of it now. Another nice performance for this horse. He just keeps showing up and running good races, Dan. What I like about this race is he chased a good horse in here all the way around the track. Conquest Tsunami, his stablemate. He chased him all through the turn. He chased him all through the stretch, and he closed him down at the end. This was a really good performance. This one's at 6.5, but you know what? They're going to cut this thing back for the Breeders' Cup this year to 5.5. He has no problem with that either. He's just a good horse in good form.
You're absolutely right, and Drayden Van Dyke rides this horse with a tremendous amount of confidence. That's 3 straight photo finishes that he's won basically in ridden-out fashion, and you're right. The horse he ran down was a course specialist. He is not. He's very adaptable. My horse is also part of an east-west rivalry, this time in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. The best horse sprinting on the dirt is Imperial Hint, but he's going to have to deal with the rejuvenated defending champion in Roy H. Let's go back to last week's Santa Anita Sprint Championship. It was not the strongest field in the world, and Roy H got a very nice trip sitting off his overmatched pace-setting stablemate Distinctive B. But once he takes over in the stretch, I like how Paco Lopez gets into him and asks him to finish. This is an eerily similar pattern that what led to Roy H's victory in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year. A second in the Bing Crosby with a sub-triple-digit buyer speed figure, a win in the Santa Anita Sprint with a triple-digit buyer, and then the explosion in the Breeders' Cup. That's what happened last year. This year, second in the Bing Crosby coming back from Dubai, sub-triple-digit buyer, and then that race in the Santa Anita Sprint. I think he is sitting on go, and I think he might be able to take the measure of a very good horse in Imperial Hint in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. That's Roy H for trainer Peter Miller. Let's get to some handicapping. The Grade 1 Canadian International has got a little bit of everything. Let's take a look at the field for Saturday's DRF Bets Race of the Day. It's the Grade 1 Pattison Canadian International at a mile and a half over the spacious EP Taylor turf course, carded as race number 9 at Woodbine. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major races this weekend, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. You can also catch my expanded Race of the Day stakes preview with Woodbine's Jeff Bratt. We cover every horse in the Canadian International in great detail. Mike, let's start with the morning line favorite, the number 2, Thundering Blue, a horse that was a solid handicapper for most of his career, but has just gotten into career form in his last 3 races. It looks like he's turned into a bit of a beast.
Yeah, he really has gotten good. He got that Group 3 when 3 starts back. It's not that often that you'll see a horse go from 50 to 1 in one race to 2 to 5 in his next race, but that's what happened with this horse. We'll take a look at the replay of the Stockholm Cup here. He's a huge favorite in this race. You're going to see a stretched out field behind him, but it's not that surprising that he puts this field away considering how well he had run 2 starts back in a really tough Juddmonte International.
Those 2 horses that beat him in the Juddmonte International, Roaring Lion and Poet's Word, and Thundering Blue came close to those 2 horses, but those 2 horses, either one of them would be favored in this year's Pattison Canadian International, and it was nice to see that Thundering Blue proved that race wasn't a fluke. joke with this performance where he just stretched them out. Yes, it was inferior competition, but the horse showed he can ship. He's 2-1 on the morning line, though, and I'm not sure he rates such an edge over this field that I want to take a short price. Maybe the key to this race, Mike, is spring quality, because we know this horse has grade 1 potentially, won the Manhattan on the Belmont Stakes undercard. He was coming into his most recent start off 4 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures, and he bombed. It had to be the ground, right?
Yeah, the Turf Classic. I mean, I think it's the race you'd probably best put a line through. It was very soft ground at Belmont that day. And not only that, that was the first day that the rails were down on the Widener turf course, and he was just stuck on the outside. You wanted to be inside. He was stuck wide the entire way. I would forgive him for that one. Any one of his prior, 4 or 5 races make him really tough in here, Dan. We're going to show the video of his race 2 starts back at Saratoga, the Grade 1 Sword Dancer. I mean, he ran well in this race when you consider the context of the race. The horse on the lead, Gorse Empire, wired the field. The horse that runs second, Channel Maker, chased him the entire way. There's only really one horse in this race who passed anybody in the stretch, and that's Spring Quality. He went from 5th up to 3rd. A really nice performance. I think he's a big player in this race.
I love the fact that Graham Motion is wheeling him back in 2 weeks. He is not putting any stock in the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. It was a 55 Beyer, and I'd advise everybody to draw a line right through that race because the good Spring Quality could easily win this. We like Chad Brown in here. You rarely get Chad at a price. I'm not sure what price Focus Group is going to be, but it could be solid because he's taken a step up in class.
He really is taking a step up in class. It's not like he has nothing to prove in this race, but this horse has been awful good, Dan. 10-1 on the line is maybe a little generous. It'll be interesting to see where he ultimately settles. But this horse, he's been really good. We'll look at his last win. They stretched him out to 1 mile and 5/8. This is what's known as widest and fastest from last end. He just charges this field down. And this is what this horse has done in 3 of his 4 starts this year. The only time he didn't get up in that Belmont race on July 4th, there was no pace. He had no chance in that race. He ran a big race here.
And that race where he got beat was also 1.25 miles. The further, the better for Focus Group, who scores here at 1 mile and 5/8. And again, he was last turning into the stretch. He passed everybody with an electric turn of foot. He draws a lousy post position for the Pattison Canadian International. And I'm not worried about it because I think Jose Ortiz is going to break, take this horse back to last, maneuver as close to the rail as possible, and hope that his kick from last time at Saratoga translates to that spacious turf course at Woodbine. I'm with Mike. I'm going with Focus Group at a big price, hopefully, in the Grade 1 Pattison Canadian International. For more on how the pace is going to play out, we'll join Craig Milkowski for his Timeform US Pace Projector Spotlight. And for more of the bloodlines on major contenders in the Canadian International, we'll take a look at Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment. Let's go to them right now.
This week, we're going to look at the Canadian International being run at 1.5 miles on the turf at Woodbine. And it's an interesting race from the pace projector point of view because it looks like it's going to be a fast pace to us. And the way we do that, we look at the running styles of the horses in the field and how we figure they're going to match up. A few things I do want to point out on this is that we have a few horses lacking pace data. You're going to see that from time to time. Usually it involves shippers coming over from Europe. And if there's too many of them, we won't have a pace projector. But in this case, it's just a few and it's a big field. So we go ahead and do one anyway. And then there's a few horses that aren't shown. And that's because they're just so slow early, in our opinion, that they're going to be so far off the back. Just to keep the graphic viewable and not too scrunched up and small, we just make a little note at the bottom for them. Next, we're going to look at the preview page. And on the preview page, you can see the running styles of the horses and the reason why. The label is fast for fast pace. And you can see we have 2 horses listed as leader and another 3 as tracker. And especially in a race this long, we don't just want to look at the leaders and speed types. We want to see those horses that are going to be pressing the pace and maybe move sooner rather than later. And that does tend to happen in longer races like this as well. The horses try to get position heading into that final turn, and I think that's what we're going to see here. The horse that we show on the front is the horse that'll be number 8, Bandua. And I want to just take a look at him and kind of see why. And we do show him on a clear lead. It doesn't always happen at this distance, but if you think he's going to get a clear lead, fast pace or not, that's always pretty dangerous. So he may be a horse worth looking at or throwing on your tickets at a price. But you can see 2 back at Arlington. He ran in the 3-year-old race, the Secretariat, where he lost to Carrick. But we had that race as a very quick pace. He was just a few lengths off the lead. You can see our fractions highlighted in red there. The track was good. The reason I have that part highlighted of the graphic is 1.25 miles to show he's actually stretching out another 1/4 mile over that. He did run last time at Kentucky Downs at 1 5/16, which is just slightly longer than 1.25 miles. And you'll notice we just have some dashes there and no pace figures. And that's because we don't do pace figures at Kentucky Downs. They hand time the fractions. They do the best they can, but it's an impossible job. And we just think it's better to just omit them than to try to guess what the fractions were there. But what you can do, and what I've done here, is that you can see our top 3 are highlighted. And in our past performances, if you just click on them, it's going to bring up the chart for that race. And I like to do that and take a look at the chart when I don't have pace figures. And I do it for lots of different reasons as well. But in this case, I just want to kind of look at the flow of the race to see where the winners came from, how the early leaders did and such. And looking at this, you can see the top 5 finishers I show and where they were early in the race. And just judging from that, using the anecdotal evidence, I would say that the pace was at the very least solid. We see horses coming from 8th and 10th, making up ground late. It could have been fast, but I would venture on solid. And Bandua was right up there near the front before tiring late. So that said, with the fast pace predicted, I'm going to kind of look at some closers here. And the first one's going to be the morning line favorite, Thundering Blue. I think he is a deserving morning line favorite. He's shipping in from overseas. He actually ran in Sweden in his last race. You don't see that very often. But he's got some really impressive running lines. He's got some good time form ratings, which are on the same scale as our speed figures, which really make him look strong in here. And what we also offer is with time form, you can click, you can see the short comments, which I have highlighted in the red box. And you can also click on the long comment, which will give you a full perspective of the race and some really good trip notes on the race. What I did note here is Thundering Blue likes to come from off the pace, which should be a benefit here. He's got the numbers. He's just a really strong horse. You can see he was in, and the one loss in his last 3 was he had Roaring Lion won the race. He's one of the top horses in Europe. Poet's Word was in there as well. So he's going to be very tough. The question is, does he offer any value? And that's probably a no. He's morning line favorite. I believe it was 2-1. He's probably going to be even a little shorter than that. So I'm going to look elsewhere for a price, and that landed me on Focus Group. If you see the preview page that we showed earlier, if you paid attention, he had the top time form U.S. late pace rating in here of the North American runners. He's improving each time out. He comes from the great trainer, Chad Brown. He doesn't always offer value because he wins so often, but he's really the best trainer on turf that we have here in North America. And this horse just seems to be getting better all the time. He should love the extra distance, although he's actually turning back a little from his last race. But, he's gradually been increasing in distance. This is a furlong shorter here. He likes to come from well off the pace. And I think he's going to be strong. And what really drew me to him is the 10-1 morning line. I'm not sure we'll get quite that with Chad Brown's name in the program. But if we could get 5-6-1, I will happily bet him to win. I'll also use an exacta box with the horse I mentioned earlier, Thundering Snow. And that's where I'm going to play exactas and a win bet on Focus Group.
Hey, everyone. Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate. Multiple Grade 1 events on tap this weekend up at Woodbine on a card highlighted by the Canadian International. Here's the field, and you'll see several European imports making their first North American starts here, but a strong home contingent ready to oppose them, including 3 really, really well-bred older runners who have all scored Grade 1 victories this season. Let's take a quick look at their families, all active families for posterity here. Fantastic, winner of the United Nations, is from one of the most active families in the stud book today. He's the latest Grade 1 winner out of the Grade 2 winning mare Quiet Dance, which makes him a half to Horse of the Year St. Liam and 5 other stakes horses. Those siblings include graded winner Quiet Giant, who is the Dam of Horse of the Year gun runner. It's an incredibly active family, more of a dirt route family maybe, but fantastic, probably picking up his turf ability from successful sire More Than Ready. Spring Quality won the Manhattan at Belmont this year, one of several Grade 1 winners out there, helping to propel successful multi-surface sire Quality Road to elite status. He'll stand for $150,000 this year, more than double the season stud fee. Now, Spring Quality is also a half-brother to long-winded turf-graded winner Holiday Star. His second dam is multiple graded winning turf mare Alice Springs, and the third dam is Grade 1 winner First Approach, just prominent turf performers all over his page. And lastly, a quick look at Johnny Bear. The Warhorse is already a Canadian champion and is coming straight off a Grade 1 win at Woodbine. The Son of English Channel is a full sibling to another Canadian champion in Channel Maker, who recently won the Grade 1 Joe Hirsch at Belmont. So looking to give the family another Grade 1 in the span of less than a month. Their dam is a half-turf Grade 1 winner and multiple stakes producer Auntie Mame. The Canadian International won 4 stakes on Saturday at Woodbine. Also Grade 1 action here at Keeneland and stakes action at Belmont and Santa Anita on Saturday. We're covering it all for you here on Out of the Gate and DRF TV.
DRF Sports Forum Digital Edition, your ultimate weekly betting guide. Published by Daily Racing Form, DRF Sports Forum delivers all of the analysis and insight you need for every NFL game and more than 40 college football matchups. Beat the spread with powerful trends and sharp angles. Tap into best bets, expert picks, parlay winners, and more. All for just $4.99 per issue. Get this week's edition free. Visit drf.com/sportsforum. Enter code DRFSports.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the co-feature on Pattison Canadian International Saturday at Woodbine. It's the Grade 1 E.P. Taylor Stakes, $500,000 on the line. We're going 1.25 miles for fillies and mares. For expanded stakes previews of many of the graded stakes races and lots more content, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Chad Brown's got the 2 morning line favorites in this race. We'll start with the number 2 Santa Monica, who has winning experience at Woodbine and might have been compromised a little bit last time out.
Yeah, one of several horses who were probably compromised last time in the Glens Falls. There just wasn't any pace on in the race. We'll put the replay up. Lady Montour wired this field and just got to the front, went slow, and then sprinted through the stretch. Santa Monica sat second to her. Just can't make any inroads here in the stretch, Dan. She's second best. I know that she has a win at Woodbine already. I know that she ran a 100 buyer in that race. I didn't really love the field that she beat that day. I have no argument if she's going to be the favorite in here, but that doesn't mean I'm going to bet her.
Again, I don't really feel like she has such a strong edge that I want to bet her as the favorite while she could easily win. Last race, Jose Ortiz did all the right things, put her close to the pace. You had to be, considering the glacial fractions, but I don't think that's her style. I think she likes to sit near the back of the pack, hope for some pace, and come with one run, and I think that's possibly what they'll do with her in this race. I'm curious to see what Chad does with a very lightly raced European import. That's your top pick in this race, Polara. I liked her last start overseas.
Yeah, I mean, she's only run 3 times. A 3-year-old, very lightly raced. She'll make her first start for Chad Brown. First start with Lasix off a private purchase here. So we'll see. There are some things to be concerned about with her, but it's just one of those fields that didn't come up that strong. And she just looks like she has a world of talent. We're going to look at the replay of her last race. This is a Group 3 in France, and she's sort of in behind horses. This is the trip she got the entire way, in behind the leaders. She's right there with the in the blue with the red stripe. She's trying to find a place to run. There's really nowhere for her to go, and she's not going to find any room for a little bit here, Dan. She's finally going to just push her way between horses right about here. Once they get inside, she's going to find a lane to go through, and once she finds a lane to go through, she settles this thing pretty quickly. She's got to cut back to go a shorter distance here. I guess I'm a little concerned about it, Dan. I just don't like this field that much, and she looks like she has some ability.
And that was a pretty decent field she beat last time out. I believe the runner-up came back to win a Group 2 stakes in France, and considering that Pilar was able to overcome all that traffic in only her third lifetime start, and now she gets Lasix, and she's with Chad, and she wants distance, and she might get overlooked a little bit in the wagering as she tackles older horses. She's an interesting play to be sure. You'll notice if you check out the Timeform USPPs for this race that there is no pace projector, and understandably so. There are so many European imports in this race. I want a horse that can be close, if not outright on the lead, and I think it's the sharp Starship Jubilee, who's my top selection in this race. Starship Jubilee is coming off of a career best Beyer speed figure performance last time out, and we're going to take a look at that race right now. She received a great ride. She broke on top, she was wrangled all the way to the back, there was a big pace on, she angles to the outside, and she beats a weaker field. Now, I'm not sure she really ran a mile and an eighth in 1:42 and change, and I'm not sure I believe that Beyer speed figure, but Starship Jubilee is a very versatile horse that already owns a win at 1.25 miles. That was a dead heat win last year, and she dead heated for the win despite stumbling at the start that day. Starship Jubilee with an alert break can control this race. She has the home court advantage at Woodbine. She's going to be a price, and she's going to have to run the race of her life to beat top class competition, but she's going to be a price. I made her a horse watch on this program a couple of weeks ago, and I'll stick with Starship Jubilee as my top pick in the E.P. Taylor Stakes. We'll move from Canada to the States, from Woodbine to Keeneland. The Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup is up next. Let's throw up the field for the feature race at Keeneland on Saturday. The Grade 1 Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. 3-year-old fillies going 9 furlongs for $500,000, carded as race number 9. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major stakes races this weekend, including the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup, and lots more, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. The number 8 Rushing Fall is a deserving favorite, and we'll get to her in a second, but I guess we'll take a peek at some horses that have maybe the best chances to upset her, beginning with the number 1 Nialetti, who has kept excellent company overseas.
Yeah, she's actually been in good form. She won a couple of stakes races earlier this year. She ran into the monster Alpha Centauri after that. They shipped her over earlier this year to run in the Beverly D against older horses. That
was a little too far for her, right?
Yeah, probably a little too far. Didn't run that poorly in that race. And they went back home and they ran her in this race against the Colts in a Group 2, the Celebration Mile. She's in contention here, Dan. She's just not quite good enough. It's going to come down to, one of those blanket finishes. And we'll put the replay up now. She can't quite get it done in here, but I really feel like she ran okay in this race against a good field of horses.
I certainly do think she ran okay, and you're right, it was a blanket field, but she just keeps grinding and staying on. There's no quit in her. Right here, it looks like she's got a big chance to win this race, and when the others start to quicken, she kind of just is a bit one-paced, but you're right, this is a pretty good field. The third-place finisher, Stormy Antarctic, came back to run third in the Woodbine Mile, and I guess if he runs, has an outside chance in the Breeders' Cup Mile, and the seventh-place finisher in this race, a horse that Nialetti finished ahead of, came back to run third in the prestigious Group 1 Sun Chariot Stakes overseas. She's staying on. That was a good performance at a mile. We'll see if she gets the mile and an eighth, but she's well posted, and unlike many European horses, she's got some tactical speed. So I don't think she's going to have to come from 100 out of it, which could be key in this race. One horse that likes to come from well off the pace comes from Southern California. Let's talk about Fatal Beret.
Yeah, I mean, she's a pretty nice horse in her run, right? There's really very few mistakes on her card. She's had some bad fortune in some of her races. Let's just put it that way. She's not the easiest horse to ride, but when things go her way, she's pretty good. Things really did go her way last time in the Del Mar Oaks. This is a Grade 1 win for her, and everything sort of set up the right way for her. She's a closer. She got some pace to run into. It's going to take her a while, Dan, but she's going to get there. She's eventually going to get the better of Ollie's Candy at the end of this race.
A mile and an eighth is her distance. That's what really helps her in the Queen Elizabeth II Cup, and that's a nice horse she's running down, Ollie's Candy, but she got a really good pace setup, and that's what she needs. She needs to be covered up because she can get rank if she is in the clear in the early portion of her races. Kent de Zorma does seem to fit her like a glove. The problem is there doesn't seem to be a lot of pace, and it's quite possible that A, Rushing Fall is just simply the best horse, and B, might get the best trip.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like she needs that many advantages in this race, but she might have one because when you start going through this field from top to bottom, there's just no pace on in this race, and she's going to be forwardly placed in here, and it feels like it just gives her another advantage. You have to worry about a filly who missed a lot of time in the middle of her campaign this year as a 3-year-old, but she came back off the layoff at Saratoga last time, and she did this in the Lake Placid. I mean, she got a really nice trip in this race, sitting right up close, but she just dominates this field, Dan. It's over soft ground. She's probably going to get a little bit of give in the ground Saturday, and once again, she's just too good for these horses.
And again, the question coming into this race was there was a little bit of a layoff. It was her first time at a mile and an eighth, and her tactical speed served her brilliantly. She sat off the pace, she took over, and we see her sprinting on home. She's also 2 for 2 at Keeneland Lifetime. Timeform US has her on the lead. Whether she's on the lead or just off of it, it's up in the air, but Rushing Fall should be in control when they turn into the stretch. She's my pick in here, albeit at a very short price. JK's Play of the Day has got a multiple race wager for you, and David Aragona's Timeform US Spotlight focuses on a very competitive edition of the Pebble Stakes at Belmont on Saturday. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. We're going to play a double at Keeneland. I'm playing in the Keeneland contest this weekend. I can guarantee you if this one hits, I'll be doing well in the contest. It's a play that I have on my radar. The stakes action is starting to slow down a little bit with the Breeders' Cup around the corner. However, we're going to play into a stake starting with a double in race 8, an allowance race. I'm going to use 4 horses here. I'm going to use the 6 Trace for Ben Colebrook. Had the turf try. Wasn't bad at all, but ran really well. Had some traffic in that race actually, but ran well at Ellis Park in the dirt. Got a nice figure that day. I think back on the dirt sprinting. Horse could be tough in this spot. I'm going to use Upset Brewing, coming in off of a layoff since August, but that horse has had some nice numbers as well. Forwardly placed type, obviously going 6 furlongs. That's something I like to look for. Has been training well leading up to it. I'm going to use also the 8 Trust for Steve Asmussen. Another horse who's been forwardly placed, has been working well leading into it. Has the race at Keeneland where he broke the maiden and got a nice figure that day. So I'm looking for that one to be able to run back in this spot, coming off of a break, hasn't run since July. And then also the 10, Treasure Heaven, who was bet like crazy at Gulfstream Park. Was a huge favorite that day. Didn't really have an excuse last time, but I'm going to expect that horse to improve off of that effort. Obviously had some talent the way that the horse broke the maiden at Gulfstream. Is drawn to the outside, has Javier Castellano. I think he could get it done. And then going on to the Queen Elizabeth. Look, I mean, the horse is going to be a short price, but Rushing Fall, last time I tried to beat her, and she ran huge. I thought the mile and eighth was going to be a problem. I thought coming back off of the sickness was going to be a problem. I thought the layoff was going to be a problem, and all of those were bad excuses. She ran huge that day. She likes it soft. She likes some cut in the ground. She likes Keeneland. She likes it firm. She likes it all. She's really good. I'm going to use those 4 horses in the 8th race with some weighted doubles into Rushing Fall. She should be odds on, if not odds on, really close to even money. I'm going to try to get a little bit better than that, playing the doubles with race 8. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Hi everyone, this is David Aragona with this week's Timeform US Spotlight. 2 really interesting stakes races on Saturday at Belmont Park. They both drew full fields. We're going to take a look at the second one. It's the 9th race, the Pebbles for 3-year-old fillies going a mile on the turf. Now we've gotten some rain. Today is Thursday. Supposed to be more rain overnight, so the turf course is probably going to be pretty wet. It's taken a lot of rain over the past several weeks, so I doubt we're going to see firm going, and that could play into the outcome of the race. But it's a very competitive field, really evenly matched. Let's take a look at the entire group of runners. And you'll see up in the right-hand corner that red See Details button. Click on that, and you'll see that this race is projected to feature a fast pace. Not really surprising given the amount of speed in this field and the number of horses and how competitive it is. The horse that's projected to be on the lead, the number 1 Super Striking, is a horse that's stretching out from sprint distances. She's going to be hounded early by a horse like Cool Beans, the 4, who's really a confirmed front runner. She's got one way to go, and that's to the front end. But there are a number of other horses that prefer to be right up behind the pace, stalking, like the 3 Kittens Cover Girl and the 9 horse Closer Still, who's also coming out of a sprint race. So I think we're going to see that competitive pace develop. And there are a number of closers to consider. A horse that will be coming from off the paces, or probably off the pace in this spot, is the likely favorite. That's Got Stormy. Now, she's been up close to the pace in her recent starts. She's going for her 3rd win in a row here, and she's not going to get the kind of trip that she's gotten in those last 2 wins. She's been impressive, but those 2 races that she won by 2 lengths back in June at Belmont and July at Woodbine, Those were, she was facing pretty weak fields in those races. We saw Punked and Bertata, 2 Chad Brown trainees in that June 23rd race, really not come back out of that start and do much. And the horses that she faced at Woodbine last time really just don't stack up against this field. You see the blue color-coded pace figures for each of those races. She was right up on top of those paces and was able to have the best of it in her trips that day. She's not going to get that in this spot, and I just think it's going to be a slightly tougher assignment for her. And at a short price, I want to look elsewhere. Another horse that's going to take money in this race is Significant Form. Now, I really don't know what to do with her because she's kind of gone off form in her recent races. At her best, she might be the best horse in this race. I just don't know if we're going to see her best performance in here. She was beaten by her stablemate Rushing Fall last time in the Lake Placid, and I just think she didn't handle the turf course that day. That Saratoga turf course had taken a lot of rain. It really was legitimately soft. She was down on the inside, and she kind of got steadied at the top of the stretch, really could never muster up a rally, and once she got free, she just kind of had all her momentum robbed of her by that point. So I think I can draw a line through that race, but she's kind of been tailing off recently. I guess her performance in the Belmont Oaks 2-back was better than it might seem because that race really did fall apart at the end after they went pretty fast up front, and she was kind of the only horse that hung around at the end after being close to that pace. But she's really got to turn around her form, and I'm not sure that the turf course is going to be in her favor. So I think she's talented enough to win. It's just I think circumstances might not be ideal for her. Monte Crista's coming off a win at Saratoga last time, but kind of like Got Stormy, she really had everything go her way that day because you see those blue color-coded pace figures. She was right on top of that pretty slow pace in the risk averse, and she it really turned into a sprint to the finish, and she kind of got the jump on everybody else. I thought today's rival Alti actually ran pretty well in that race, or rather Good Things Take Time ran pretty well in that race because she was wide the entire way and was closing at the end. But Monte Crista, she's obviously in very good form. I like that she can at least handle a turf course with some giving it back at Laurel earlier this spring, so I think that plays into her favor, but she's going to have a tougher assignment today coming from off the pace. The horse that interests me the most is the number 8 Victorine. I think she's going to be a bit of a price in this race. She's coming out of spot in the Sands Point last time. That was a turf course that was very soft. It was rated yielding. It had taken a lot of rain. The pace was slow, and she kind of got an uncomfortable trip where she was shuffled back early. She had to make this wide, uncovered move into the race around the far turn, and she just kind of flattened out at the end. I know she went longer distances in Europe, and she excelled going a mile and a quarter. I actually wonder if turning back to a mile might be what she wants, especially in a race where she's going to get some pace. Now she's switching into the barn of Christophe Clement, who has really been heating up recently at Belmont. You see that red hot on the trainer ratings up in the right-hand corner. That just indicates that he's been on a strong run at Belmont recently, and I think this filly has more ability than it might seem. She can improve on that speed figure that she earned last time as she turns back to the mile and gets the right pace scenario, and I think she's a horse that can really step forward here. But it's a very competitive race. I'm going to be using Victorine strongly over Got Stormy, Monte Crista, and Significant Form. That's the Pebbles, race 9 at Belmont. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Mike, you're a NYRA analyst. You have something at beautiful Belmont Park. Hopefully, we stay on the turf.
Yeah, we'll see what the weather's like. Right now, looking a little dicey, but race 6 is a maiden special weight for 2-year-old fillies on the grass at 7 furlongs. Style and Grace is just a horse who feels like she's more turf meant than dirt meant, so I'm hoping that this stays on and she gets a chance to try the turf. She's already started twice. We're going to look at her career debut back at Saratoga early in the meet. She just got outrun early in this race, raced very wide, and she'll just close along and get up for 3rd at the end of this race. They brought her back at the end of the meet, and she just landed in a race that didn't have a lot of pace. She was wide again. She trying to close. It wasn't happening, but she just feels like a horse who wants a little more ground to work with, and she wants turf. She's all turf on the dam side. They've been trying to get her on the turf. She's already been rained off at least once. Hopefully it stays on and she gets a chance to try it on Saturday.
My best bet is on the Pattison Canadian International undercard. It's the Grade 3 Ontario Derby, and I'm going to go with the number 2, Looking to Strike, hoping to wire this field. This horse has a good amount of early speed and likes the Tapeta surface. Last 2 victories came on Tapeta, sandwiching around a turf effort and a pretty salty turf race at that, where I think this horse was overmatched in the Toronto Cup. Let's go back to this horse's most recent race. As the lone 3-year-old in a field of older allowance horses, Looking to Strike sat 2nd off the pace setter, took over turning into the stretch, and is going to hold off the closers in the lane, including the favorite, Giant Storm, a horse that came back to win his very next start. Now, we won't see the gallop out here, but I like how Looking to Strike finished up this race, galloped out well after the fact. Gonna have to try to navigate an extra 16th of a mile. Timeform US has this horse on the lead. I think Looking to Strike can get to the lead, and if Gary Boulanger can slow down the pace, maybe this horse can sprint home in the Ontario Derby. 6-1 on the morning line for the number 2, Looking to Strike. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings on social media. Follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.